Okay. Bing bong. Bring. SCP orientation. Alright, just imagine that the SCP orientation thing is here and what I can do. What we are going to do in this journey.
SCP-4246. The Lassomania.
Any one of them for me is wild
the dreams
card.
Of
I
the
play it with Fundertainment over here on the Foundation game.
The ancient
and this is all
astronauts
Granddaddy's
hypothesis,
35 to me. If I need to use it to kill you because this is
a
the
fairly
round I gotta
popular
back
one
to hit
for
that
both
bear from
fictional
here,
stories
well,
and
that's
non-fictional pseudoscientific study. The concept is pretty simple, that in the early days of humanity, extraterrestrials visited Earth and made contact with humans.
Go on.
To varying degrees.
Anew.
H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos is one of the earliest examples of this concept, particularly in his story At the Mountains of Madness, which involves explorers in Antarctica stumbling upon an ancient city built by non-humans, or The Call of Cthulhu, which details a sunken city populated by the titular eldritch monstrosity, who hailed from beyond the stars. The SCP universe has often touched upon various alien species, including some that predate humanity on Earth. But SCP-4246 is one that is heavily influenced by Lovecraft's works, with its own twist on things. Of note, before we get into what exactly 4246 is, we can see that it's given the Archon object class, which means that, while it could theoretically be contained by the Foundation, it's actually better off if it's left uncontained.
It's also the intro.
We'll see why that is later, of course. SCP-4246 primarily manifests as a morbid psychological condition involving dreams, hallucinations, delusions, and fixations of a singular relation to the ocean and its contents.
Because that moment right there.
Individuals affected by this condition display significant behavioral changes, including the development of abnormal neuropathologies. Most of them will eventually come to interpret their anomalous experiences as spiritual visions of some sort,
all fucked up
which
right
they
now,
take to convey some revelations or esoteric knowledge. This then ultimately leads to the creation of cults and related organizations. Frequently reported elements of the 4246 condition include visions of sprawling and colossal cities beneath the sea, displaying alien architecture, and composed of a material described as smooth, seamless, glassy, and black. They also include visions of gardens of coral, displaying indescribable colors, an uncontrollable psychological urge to immerse themselves in seawater, often to the point of self-endangerment, and hallucinations involving symbols of unknown origin or context, usually manifesting as short, rapid flashes that leave fleeting imprints upon their vision.
We make them whatever we want.
These visions have been known to trigger dizziness, vertigo, post-traumatic stress, psychosis, mania, and or depression, homicidal or suicidal thoughts, behavior, and the development of new hallucinations.
They want to dance, they dance. If they don't, they don't.
These new hallucinations are described by individuals as being incapable of being expressed or described in words, but are unquestionably traumatic. Afflicted individuals have been known to kill both family and friends in an effort to save them from an ill-defined but nevertheless impending cataclysm.
Whatever dumb shit you did, you'd think, you blink, you'll be like...
Individuals also report sensations similar to phantom pain or body integrity identity disorder, in which they feel that they are missing limbs that have otherwise never existed.
About who was involved,
they understand that this feeling is illogical and that the human body normally has 4 limbs, but continue to experience these sensations regardless. Some individuals have described phantom pain registering up to 12 meters away from their bodies, as if the non-existent appendages were significantly longer than their actual limbs. There are several cases of afflicted individuals removing the limbs of others and attempting to graft them onto their own bodies, with fatal results. Ultimately, the majority of afflicted individuals will eventually self-terminate by drowning in the ocean, with only a minority of cases able to resist
some
this
universe
urge.
could be designed that way in the simulator. Space Marine
Affected
dance.
individuals are divided into three different subtypes: A, B,
whatever
and
you
C.
picked up in the Doomslayer.
Type A individuals are the most common, generally displaying one or more of the previously described symptoms.
Well, because you were
It's unknown how many of these individuals are out there, but they're generally self-containing, easily countered by the propagation of disinformation. Type B individuals, however, exhibit extrasensory perception, such as the ability to identify information hidden from normal senses, as well as preternatural knowledge of a person's thoughts and memories. Following decades of research, it's been determined that Type B individuals are passive receivers, unwillingly absorbing information via ESP, but unable to actively transmit it. Of course, we won't get to learn about what the Type C individuals are until later in the document. The earliest known effort to catalog and explain this phenomena was by English occultist Joseph Adler, the leader of the Hermetic Order of Universal Wisdom, an organization devoted to the study and practice of the occult, metaphysics, and paranormal activities during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. In his book, The Drowned Kingdoms, or The Eternal Dreams of the Firstborn, he discusses his lifelong visions of astral exploration of the ruins of a long-forgotten race, which he refers to as the Firstborn. Other names for these firstborn include the drowned gods, the forebears, and the elder race. While claims involving lost worlds and civilizations were a popular concept at the time, Adler's work includes extensive interviews with other Type A individuals, referred to in his work as dreamers. Adler made accurate scientific conclusions describing concepts such as plate tectonics, evolution, memetics, and physics, including the debunking of the existence of Mu and Lemuria, which were popular with both scientists and occultists at the time. On October 29th, 1920, Adler and 9 of his followers attempted a mass astral projection, or out-of-body experience, in the hopes of learning more about the Firstborn.
We could. Well, maybe
the attempt resulted in the deaths of all 9 followers, 3 by heart attack, 2 from intracranial hemorrhage, and 4 by self-termination. Adler himself survived, but was rendered permanently blind, and would die the following year. Before then, he was interviewed by a doctor from the Foundation while at a hospital in England. Despite the doctor introducing himself as Dr. White, Adler immediately says that he is not from here, calling him by his real name of Schroeder, and saying that his arrival was foretold in the tendrils. Schroeder was not made aware of his anomalous capabilities, with Adler's dossier suggesting that he was not sane whatsoever. Adler assures him that he is the epitome of sanity, but Schroeder doesn't really buy that, calling him a man so consumed by madness that he tore out his own eyes.
Maybe you're watching somebody doing it.
He asks how can someone do such a thing and still claim to be sane. Adler simply responds that he had no choice, and asks him how knowledgeable he is regarding the deep sea. Schroeder says that this isn't his area of expertise, so Adler continues, saying that the ocean has always fascinated him. In dreams, since youth, he plumbed the depths of the pelagic abyss and beheld with awe the long-forgotten edifices of the elder race. He says that we fear the dark and cold embrace of her undulating vastness, but despite this fear, she inspires within our hearts a singular curiosity. One day man will know that world. He goes on to explain what the depths do to the human body, with the pressure crushing your organs and shattering your bones. That's why submersibles must be built strong, and in time man will create something capable of enduring the true abyss. The human mind is not so different from such a vessel, as it can only dive so deep before this, gesturing to his lack of eyes.
3%.
He says that he looked too far, beheld that which no man should ever see, horrors beyond conception and perception. He looked too far, and something did not appreciate his gaze. Compared to man, the firstborn were as gods, and if they could not stop it, what chance do we have?
Well, they're supposed to be like...
The log ends at this point, with the closing statement being that Adler appears to be a true telepath. Operatives arrived at the hospital the next day with the intention of taking Adler into Foundation custody, but he was discovered unresponsive in his room and was later declared deceased.
Jump into its table. You don't want to do that.
The cause of death was indeterminate, but was thought at the time to be the result of untreated pneumonia, aggravated by recent trauma.
Yes. UBLDT.
Among his belongings was an unfinished draft of a map depicting an unknown location, initially believed to be an uncharted island, as the apparent coastline failed to coincide with any known location, and the etching itself offered no sense of scale. All efforts to find the island failed, and the map was dismissed as irrelevant until 1956.
We'll find out day one.
Type A individuals would continue to be tracked and observed, while Type Bs would be contained by the Foundation.
Always right.
It was eventually discovered in 1954 that Type B individuals are not actually psi positive, but are merely receiving information sent and or displaced by an outside force. A new method of psi assessment was developed, at which point it was discovered that Type Bs require a subject relatively nearby to read, suggesting that displaced information decayed the further it moved from its original source, or that it was dependent on the number of sources, not distance traveled.
At the bar.
In such a case, two Type Bs on opposite ends of the world would be able to read each other's minds clearly, as long as there were no other minds to dilute this information.
It will help. And from my
During various interviews of Type B individuals, a significant difference arose between cases where interviewers knew the questions and answers in advance and cases where they were not aware of them before the interview. In the former case, Type Bs were able to ascertain any information held by the interviewer, but in the latter there would be a delay between 1 to 12 seconds. With enough simultaneous interviews going on, researchers concluded that the 4246 phenomena required approximately 12 seconds to reach Foundation Site 744 from its point of origin. This suggests that 4246 is likely a frequency of unknown wavelengths, significantly slower than electromagnetic radiation, but potent enough to cause information displacement or amplification.